In the West, power is defined by names that rise and fall with the stock market. Apple, Amazon, Exxon. But in Asia, power is something older, deeper, and far more terrifying. It doesn't fade with a bad quarterly report. It's passed from father to son, uncle to nephew. It is a bloodline. The biggest companies on the continent are not corporations in the way you understand them. They are dynasties. Behind every famous logo is a patriarch. Behind every fortune is a story of brutal, brilliant survival. A handful of families in one city, Hong Kong, own over half of the prime real estate. Their combined net worth is more than all the billionaires in Canada. You need to understand. To know who runs the global economy, you have to look past the CEOs and see the ancient family councils pulling the strings. Because nothing is ever as simple as it looks. The truth is, this whole system was built out of desperation. After World War II, most of Asia was in ruins. There was no Wall Street, no credit system, and no trust. So people turned inward. They trusted the only network that still worked, their own blood. If a cousin loaned you money, it was a bond, not a transaction. If a nephew betrayed the business, it was a scandal that lasted generations. This is how Asia rebuilt, not through institutions but through relationships. Governments recognized this and formed a partnership. The state gave these families protection, loans, and licenses. The families provided loyalty, efficiency, and growth. That's how the Asian miracle was forged. But in exchange, the families were given power, the kind that doesn't end with an election. In the West, they talk about the invisible hand of the market. In Asia, it has always been the invisible hand of the patriarch. But what happened next would shock everyone. The Asian dynasties quickly built business structures designed to achieve one objective: never lose control. Unlike their Western counterparts, which disperse ownership among millions of shareholders, these families use a genius, complex strategy. It's a maze of interlocking ownership. One holding company owns another, which owns another, looping around until it circles back to a family trust. On paper, the patriarch might own only 20% of the main company. In reality, he controls absolutely everything. This system ensures that the business doesn't die with the founder. It doesn't even have to obey the market. It becomes a fortress, immune to hostile takeover. In the West, shareholders demand transparency, but here, discretion is a virtue. Nepotism is not a flaw, it is insurance. And this principle of immortality leads to the most stunning part of the inheritance plan. In these empires, bloodline isn't strictly limited to genetics. It is a matter of earned loyalty. When a trusted, brilliant executive proves his mettle over decades, he can be adopted into the family, legally. These are not symbolic gestures, they are succession plans. In Japan, this ancient practice keeps the companies intact today. It is not uncommon for the heir to a multi-billion-dollar empire to be a man in his 40s or 50s, adopted by the aging patriarch to take the family name and carry on the business. In fact, over 90% of adult adoptions in Japan are for this exact reason. To secure the family is legacy. It's a ruthless logic. Talent is secondary to absolute trust. This is how a business achieves corporate immortality. This secret network of power was tested like never before in 1997. V. Crisis is the Great Filter. 1997. The 1997 Asian financial crisis was supposed to be the end of the dynasties. The Asian miracle turned into contagion overnight. Currencies crashed. Entire countries were facing total economic meltdown. In South Korea, entire chaebols, those massive family conglomerates, teetered on the edge. In Indonesia, the rupiah lost 80% of its value. For most economies, it would have been absolute ruin. But the family firm survived not by luck, but by design. Their fortress structure paid off. When one company in the network collapsed, another absorbed its remains. They didn't dissolve their debts. They bought their own debt back at a discount. They used state bailouts to simply consolidate. They turned volatility into opportunity. While foreign investors retreated in panic, the tycoons expanded. The crisis became a great filter. Only the most resilient families survived, and those that did became truly untouchable. Today, these dynasties are the unchallenged engine of global growth, but they are still run like ancient monarchies wrapped in modern suits. The scale of their power is breathtaking. Consider this. Samsung alone produces revenue roughly equal to the GDP of an entire European nation like Finland. The Ambani family US Reliance empire is 4 times more profitable than all of India. S Airlines combined. Their control isn't just financial, it's social, political, and cultural. They own the land people live on, the utilities they use, and increasingly the data they generate. The lines between private power and public governance have blurred until they essentially disappear. It's not necessarily corruption, it's design. The state depends on these families for stability and jobs, and in exchange, the families get absolute protection. But even immortal empires face a challenge no loyalty can fix. Now, the patriarchs are aging. The question is, will the heirs protect the legacy or dismantle it? We've seen the battles erupt. Succession feuds in Korea's biggest groups have become public spectacles, resembling royal dramas more than corporate disputes. But the deeper truth is that the system itself remains unshaken. Even when one dynasty stumbles, another quietly takes its place. The Asian model of capitalism isn't declining, it's spreading. Across the globe, from the Waltons in America to the Arnolds in France, wealth is consolidating into dynastic hands again. The West built systems designed to outlive people. Asia built people designed to outlive systems. And in a world where institutions keep breaking, maybe that's why these families have endured. They never trusted the system. They built their own.